habit is right. So what I do in particular is that after I have finished my day, just before I log out, I write something. It could be anything. It could be, you might want to write a LinkedIn post, a Facebook post, an Instagram post, something on Twitter. You might want to spend a couple of hours maybe on an article. Somebody suggested that, daily writing about in their diary how their day was spent. So you, before logging out for your day, before you end, just spend another 5 minutes in writing. Okay, so it is very helpful if you write a LinkedIn post. So that will not just help you in improving your communication skills, but it will also help you in networking. A lot of times people might have a doubt that, what do I post every day on LinkedIn? I have nothing to post, right? So what you can do is you can match it up with your specializations area, or you can probably just share your experience, whatever your experience about the day on LinkedIn. Like for instance, maybe let's say you learned about a new management skill. Maybe that is what you would want to share. Or like for instance, I run a thread today in gender on LinkedIn and Twitter. Now what I do in today in gender is, since I work on this area, every day I am spending at least 10 minutes to 30 minutes on understanding what are the recent developments in the gender space. So what I do is I pick up the most important news item for the day and I write a post on LinkedIn on that. You can do that for your different areas. Maybe let's say if somebody is specializing in mergers and acquisition, you might want to speak about the recent deals that are happening in the business. If somebody is working on a criminal law, maybe you want to talk about how you pleaded before the council, pleaded before the judge. How was your experience, right? So whichever way you can incorporate by writing a post on whichever platform that's comfortable to you, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, that will help you in two ways. One, in building your network, and also improving your English. The second activity could be writing an article. Now, writing an article is very important for lawyers as well as law students. As you all know that, we lawyers cannot advertise themselves. I can't say that, hey, hello, I'm a very good posh practitioner. I cannot do that. But I can constantly keep writing about my practice and my work will speak for itself. Right? So what I can do is on an everyday basis, I can spend some time on research, on writing on recent developments that has happened. So this can also happen in a post format or in an article format. Now, for some people who are acquainted with the practice of writing, they might want to devote like hours for this activity. But let's say even if you have 10 minutes in hand, okay, even if you can commit only for 10 minutes, that is also good enough, right? So you can now, for article writing, what you will need is you will need to have a clear idea on what idea you will be working on. Then every day you can spend like 10 minutes, 30 minutes, depending upon whatever time you have in your hand, and start writing. Okay. If you don't want to do any of these two activities, you can just journal. You can just write about your daily experience in your diary. So the third important activity is writing. Again, you have to do it with a purpose and intentional understanding that you're trying to do this for improving your English. You're not just doing it for the love of writing. Okay, you're also doing this activity to improve your English. Now what you'll do is whatever you've learned, maybe the word that you were practicing, maybe an expression that you heard in the podcast, you would try and incorporate that in your writing. Okay, so this is how you'll be linking all the activities that we're doing throughout the day. So maybe let's say the word that you learned was repudiate. Maybe you would want to incorporate the word in writing the post, okay, or writing the article. So try and link all the three activities that you're doing. The next important habit is reading. So what I do is after I have completed my day, I've done the post, everything, just before I'm about to sleep, I spend around 10 to 15 minutes reading. Now, a lot of you might not like reading books, okay? But as lawyers, it is inevitable that we can avoid reading. We have to have a practice where we are constantly exposed to reading. So, those of you who are looking at ways to develop reading as a habit, what you can do is you can subscribe to a newsletter. I have mentioned a couple that I follow. One is The Ken, The Quads, LawSikho, and Live Learner. These are the four newsletters that I love. Now, what the Ken does is, now the Ken summarizes one news item, one business news item, okay, and I like how they write, okay. They write in a very interesting storytelling format. So it's very engaging and it is not very long, okay. So newsletters are typically like what, 1,000 words, that's it. It will not even take you like 5 minutes. So if not all these four, whichever is your favorite, you can experiment and start reading a newsletter every day, if not a book, okay. Another habit, another quick habit is that you can read a book on Headway. Now Headway is an app. You can, it's free, you can download it from Play Store. Now what Headway does is, Headway gives you an access to, Headway has summaries of all the books and it gives you access to one book for free every day, okay. So imagine you can read like 30 summaries of 30 different books in a month. So and those are written very crisply, okay. This is just like 10 pages, 10 pages picked from that book, and they're written in a very simple language. So if you don't want to invest in a book, if you're not somebody who's very comfortable reading for longer hours, maybe you can just do these two things, okay. Reading a newsletter and reading a book on Headway. It's a free application you can download. Sayad is talking about share the first and the second slide. Of course, I'll just scroll a little back. We'll revise quickly. First is that you listen to a podcast. These are the ones that I listen to. You can create your own list. Okay. The only important thing is that you have to match this exercise with something that you are already doing so that it is easier for you to practice on a daily basis. Right? The second is you have to practice a word. How I ensure that I am doing this is that before I log into my work, before I start reading my emails, before I start planning for my everyday work, it just takes 5 minutes, okay. You don't have to spend hours. Just 5 minutes, practice that word. The important aspect is that you rely on your memory, okay, so that you're able to use that word again and again. Before I log off, I just write. It could be my experience about how my day was, how I interacted with students. It could be about the post that I spoke about today in gender, anything that you like. Okay. It could also be an article that you're working on, that you're planning to write on. So maybe like 10 minutes in a day. I hear a lot of time people telling me that, they have no time to write an article. They're working professionals, they have a full-time job to do, and the only thing I tell them is that you don't have to find time explicitly. You just have to block like 10 minutes in a day, and that's all. Even if you write for 10 minutes every day, it'll be 300 minutes like for the whole month. So that's about it. Just block 10 minutes. You can also journal. If those are the above two habits are not something that you would want to do, you can just put your thoughts in a journal. Here the important trick is that you have to be intentional about your learning, and you have to use whatever expressions maybe you heard in your podcast, or any new word that you were learning. Try and use that in your journal while writing the post or in the article. So try and link all the three activities. Lastly, spend time reading. Okay, reading is very, very important. So you can either read a newsletter or a book on a Headway, or if you also like reading, you can pick any favorite book and then start reading that. Even if you do like 2 pages a day, that is also good enough, right? The important aspect is doing. The last and the most important habit is tracking. So a lot of times I have seen people telling me that they're they're listening to podcasts, but they don't know whether they are able to grasp it or not. Sometimes they lose track. So they do it for the first 2 days, and the third day, sometimes they're doing, sometimes they're not doing. There is no tracking that they are able to do. So therefore, the most important aspect is that you track what you have done in the entire day, right? Again, this will only take 5 minutes, but you can skip any of the activities. Now let's say you're traveling and you don't have time for doing all those 5 things. Maybe you can skip the other activities, but ensure that you're doing this one, because this is the habit that will tell you how is your progress, where are you in the level. So if you're beginning from a beginner's level and trying to move to an intermediate level, or if you're trying to move from intermediate to an advanced level, tracking and measuring is the only thing that will be telling you how good you are at it. Okay, so what you have to do is, now what I do is, in my everyday notebook, I mention these activities in my to-do list. These are the 4 things that I have to do, and at the end of the day I just put a tick mark to check, was I able to do these things or was I not able to do these things. Even if you've missed on an activity, that is all right. Okay, you don't have to beat yourself up that, oh no, shit, I couldn't give time to reading. That is all right. Okay, you might come back to that activity maybe the second day, but nevertheless you have to still keep tracking.